Hello everyone and welcome back to a professional match of StarCraft 2. Today it's time for a Terran versus Zerg, where we find ourselves on Pride of Alteris. Spawning right here in the bottom right hand corner of the map, playing with the red Terran SCVs from South Korea, we have none other than ByuN. His opponent in the opposite corner with the blue Zerg drones, likewise also from Korea and likewise also one of the very best. We are looking at Solar's main base. Alrighty, now before I start up this cast, about 10 minutes or so ago, I was thinking about previous Terran versus Zergs that I've seen on this map. And I was thinking about it for a good little bit because I couldn't really remember that many Terran versus Zergs in general. I haven't seen that many of them. So I was thinking that's probably just coincidence because there's a lot of StarCraft tournaments being played all of the time. And obviously with StarCraft 2 going on pretty much what seems to still be 24/7, it's kind of impossible to watch every single game that's being played. But it turns out, statistically, there haven't really been that many Terran versus Zergs on Pride of Alteris specifically. So I did a little bit of digging, right? So what I found out is that at the professional level in tournament games, there have been 68 games of Terran versus Zerg on Pride of Alteris in total. If you compare that to like a Curious Minds or a Berlingrad or a, I don't know, like a Hardwire or something, right? Maps that got introduced on the exact same day as Pride of Alteris, they all have about 150 to 200 or so games. So they have like 3 to 4 times as many games played on those maps of Terran versus Zerg in particular. So I did a little bit more digging, and I found out that, well, the current map pool is pretty terrible for Terran versus Zerg in particular, especially if you're a Terran player. So the reason why this map is being vetoed quite a bit by Terrans in tournaments is because it's just not a very good map for Terrans overall. It's got a total win rate of 44.1% in a relatively small sample size for the Terran players. However, the other maps are also not particularly great. The best map in the current map pool for Terrans is 2000 Atmospheres. 2000 Atmospheres, it's got a win rate of 51.5%, and obviously it was already around before the current map pool. So we had that in the previous one as well. But Berlingrad has 46.8% win rate for Terran, Curious Minds 46.3%, Glittering Ashes 46.3%, Blackburn 46.2%, Pride of Alteris, like I said, 44.1%, and Hardwire, the only map that's even worse apparently for Terran players versus Zerg, has 41.3%. I didn't actually realize it was quite that bad. I've actually, especially for like Hardwire, it surprised me a little bit. I've always kind of felt like the map is relatively even overall, maybe slightly Zerg favored, but nearly 60% win rate for Zerg on that map is, yeah, it's pretty significant. Now, interestingly enough, for Protoss versus Terran, the maps seem to be slightly Terran favored, and for Zerg versus Protoss, the maps seem to be about 50-50 overall, some of them being better for Protoss, some of them being better for Zerg. But there's no denying that apparently the current map pool is pretty terrible for Terran versus Zerg. Now, for what it's worth, the map pool that we had before this one was very good for Terrans, and they didn't really have any problems vetoing any of the maps. But I guess right now, if you're a tournament player and you're playing Terran, it's mostly choosing your poison. You gotta figure out which of the maps you don't want to play on, more so than the other maps. Isn't that kind of fascinating? Anyway, so Pride of Alteris only 68 games, so the sample size is rather small. If you compare that to like a Blackburn, on Blackburn there have been 439 pro games. Isn't that kind of crazy? Anyways, I figured let us have a look at this game because I'm excited to find out exactly what ended up going down here, because I've only seen a handful of matches of Terran versus Zerg on Pride of Alteris in general. Alright, so the reason why this map is not that great for Terran overall is because there's just simply so many bases for Zerg to get. And as you might be aware, Zerg is definitely keen on getting like 11 bases going if they can. So these maps, they have a ton of expos, and this one in particular also has a ton of high grounds. This is the very first map that we've ever had in StarCraft 2's history that has 4 layers. So pretty much all of the maps in StarCraft 2 have only 3 layers. Actually, I think every single one of them. Maybe there have been 1 or 2 that have only 2. Do we see a little bit of Hellion harassment? Okay, I thought maybe it could get some sort of damage done. Anyways, on this map, we have the main base, then a ramp leading down towards the low ground to the natural, then a ramp leading down towards, I guess, like the 3rd layer, and then a ramp leading down towards, like, the playable area. Meaning that there are a lot more high grounds, which automatically favor defensive play, right? You can imagine that if you're on that high ground, you've got the advantage of just being able to see the opponents, and therefore, like, a little bit sooner than they can see you, and therefore you can get the very first shot in before your opponent can. And it's a little bit easier to set up engagements as well. Like, say, for example, ByuN wants to push up towards this high ground over here. It's very difficult for him to actually get damage in because, well, Zerg can see him coming very easily. And in general, it's gonna put you on the back foot, right? Bundle that with the fact that there's so many expansions to take. Like, if you take out one of the bases, you can kill like 10 drones. You know what? Yeah. If you can kill a bunch of workers, Zerg can obviously just re-expand towards another spot. So far, though, this harassment not going all too good, although one queen does end up going down, but a queen for a liberator with maybe a drone or two, not quite ideal. So, the only times, I guess, that we see this map, I feel like I've seen a lot of Hardwire, though, right? Like, we've seen a lot of Hardwire TVZs. That one game, what was it? Raynor versus Maru comes to mind. I think it was Raynor versus Maru. That was an absolute banger of Terran versus Zerg. Highly recommend you go ahead and check it out. What was I saying? Right, so in general, I mean, it's just one of those maps that we haven't seen all too often, and the reason why is that in tournament games, say you're playing a best of 3, since there are 7 maps in the current map pool, both players get to veto 2 maps each. And in a best of 5, you get to veto 1 map each. So I'm assuming, for example, if this is a best of 5, which I think it was, I think this is one game from a best of 5, like the semi-finals of an ESL Open Cup, if I'm not mistaken. I'm assuming ByuN then, like, vetoed Hardwire, right? Which is apparently the worst map for Terran overall, which made then Solar pick this as one of the maps that is, yeah, being played. Anyways, it's interesting. It definitely is interesting. Now, one thing that's also worth noting, though, while this game, by the way, is starting off in a very normal way. I mean, I know some people are like, Loko, why don't you talk about the game? I'm paying attention, trust me, but it's a very standard game. Quick layer right here for Solar, going into the Bailing speed upgrade. We're seeing him going for the 1-1 here pretty soon as well. And if I can make a prediction, it's probably going to be Hydras as a follow-up after he's got the 4th base saturated. Whereas Terran is just going for the standard 1-1-1 harassment, quick 3rd command center. And they're both just macroing up. I actually really do like this wall. Anyways, one thing to note as well, and then I'll shut up about, you know, my theoretical complaining, I suppose. And we do have a nice little push going out. Is that even at the pro level, right? Even at the tournament level, there's still a huge range as far as skills go. So even though maybe the map is not good for, like, Terran players at the pro level overall, ByuN is not your average pro gamer, whatever that means. Guy's very good. Anyways, when I see like ByuN or for example Amaru playing on Hardwire, it definitely doesn't seem like a map where they're losing 6 times there you go, out of 10 games against pro level Zergs. Nah, definitely not. Anyways, I like this little laid back siege tank over here. I think what Solar has to do, though, is just not engage. He doesn't need to be fighting that siege tank all the way there in the back. ByuN wants him to go down towards the low ground. Instead, though, he did send a ton of Zerglings towards the bottom left-hand corner. This is relatively close to the Terran's 3rd expo, and at this point, Terran doesn't really know about it. Then again, this little run-by over here is kind of slow. He's waiting for the Banelings to be done, so there's a lot of reinforcements already available here for the Terran as well. He is going for a sensor tower and his little nuke. Siege tank, in the meantime, has been repositioned towards the bottom right here, which is fair enough. I think it can shoot up towards the high ground, yeah. Negating some of that high ground advantage. Are we going full greed? I feel like we should have gone through the depots there, Mr. Solar. Maybe a little bit too excessive. At the very least, this is forced. Oh god, they're all stuck! He didn't lower the depots! What? How? Okay. I feel like that should have been more SCVs than 13. But that was a bit of a misplay right there from ByuN. One of the siege tanks now being given away as well. All of the SCVs right there were stacked on top of each other, so I guess that Solar glanced at it and thought it was only a single worker. That was an entire stack of like 20 plus. Sadly down for the Zerg player at least. He didn't notice that in time. The siege tank, the one that was all the way in the back, apparently abandoned there by the Terran player. It's a little bit sad. Anyways, Lurker then is indeed coming up right now. +2/+2 is coming up as well for Solar. And the hive is already building. Yeah, there's a lot of terrain to cover, right? Now, for what it's worth as well, if you're a ladder hero... pick up. If you're a ladder hero like myself, sure, maybe the pro-level Zerg players are very good on this map. but it requires a ton of APM to play properly, because you have like 17 alleyways to be spreading like the creep through, right? So personally, I do prefer playing a map like Curious Minds a little bit better, just because there's not as many angles to be spreading creep towards, whereas on this map, you know, high APM is rewarded more, right? Because there's so many different angles to go with, and yeah, Solar apparently happily sitting at, well, look at his APM right there, going up to like 500-600 there, easy peasy. If you're a regular human, hitting 10 buttons a second might be a bit hard. Anyways, what I'm trying to get at is, like, in your ladder games, you probably don't necessarily want to be vetoing these maps. Honestly, you should just veto the maps you don't like. I think that's the best way to go about vetoes. People ask me all the time, like, do I veto maps? Yes, I do veto maps, the ones I don't like playing. I don't really care too much about win-loss ratios. I think Pride of Altaris is not that much fun to play for Zerg overall. I play Zerg mostly myself. So I personally don't play it. Even though statistically it's apparently very good for Zerg. I can't really find that much success. Neither can ByuN right over, or Solar right here with this engagement though. Yeah, there's two fights happening. Solar defending the one on the right, but the one on the left definitely did get some work done. It's just that, like, ByuN usually plays this very tempo-based style, and the tempo is kind of decent, but he's not really continuously pushing here, and soon, whatever tempo he did build up, by denying creep spread and all that, is going to be the night with Lurkers coming out, right? So we should see some Lurker player very soon. Solar is super annoying when it comes to those Lurkers as well. Good control here by the South Korean Terran player. Although I do think he's overstaying his welcome a little bit, though. Like, he's fighting on the right side while also fighting on the left, while also getting the gold base set up. Planetary Fortress has now been built in that location, so that is very nice. Ooh, Vipers, Vipers, Vipers! Get him, ByuN! Ooh, feel like he had a chance right there to potentially get them all, but didn't quite take the opportunity there. Obviously, he doesn't know. Couple more siege tanks coming in from the back as well. This is very dangerous. Yeah, stacking the siege tanks up together, inviting them for a blinding cloud almost. Solar takes a really good engagement. Like, at this point, Solar just wants to trade. He doesn't really care too much about it because he's got that economical advantage. I mean, normally you do, but the golden base right here does sort of even up that that advantage that he's got. Yeah, actually, income-wise, it's relatively even. I would love to see some Lurkers. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so 5 Lurkers are coming up. We already did have the Seismic Spines upgrade, which is the Lurker ranged upgrade. And this is a very scary army now. Yeah, Lurkers just make it so difficult for Terran players like ByuN to push, right? So ByuN is very much so someone who likes to hit at like 7 angles at once. He's known as Micro Jackson for a good reason. Okay, we're gonna go into a very quick Nidus Worm. Kind of like it. But Lurkers kind of prohibit that, right? I feel like Lurker play maybe favors someone like... maybe someone like Hero Marine a little bit more. Hero Marine definitely a big fan of like parade pushing through the center of the map. At least I've seen him do that many times before. Lurkers obviously can still shut that down too, but I do feel like this is almost a direct counter to the playstyle that, yeah, ByuN likes to go for. ByuN recently, though, has been playing a lot more defensively as well. Okay. This is, by the way, a wall-off over here. The little archway that you see. So Zerg can't just run through that. Still, though, I think there might just be a little bit too many Zerglings and Banelings here. Yeah, once again, we do have a pickup. Nidus Worm going up in the back of the main. Ghost Academy is coming up for that Ghost transition. No? You guys, only some of you have listened to Sabaton's Ghost... no? Okay. Another Nidus Worm. Are we just gonna go Nidus Worm into Nidus Worm? This is one of those moments where, like, it's almost like a skill check, you know? Solar's like, are you good enough for this? Are you leaving units behind in places? This is very strong on the ladder, by the way, I found. If you go up against a... like, say you're a Zerg player and you go up against a Terran player, these Nidus networks are incredibly tricky to deal with. Like, most average Terran players, right? They will not be leaving this siege tank over here inside of the main base. It's such an awkward unit, and obviously the siege tank would be more valuable at the front. It's just that, you know, if you get 10 Lurkers in the main base, you're kind of dead. So it's one of those nice little skill checks. Definitely can recommend if you're a ladder hero. Anyways, here we go. Zerg once again coming in. Yeah, that planetary is very, very hopeful. Big drop inside of the main base as well. Okay, if we can take out some of the important tech structures, that would help, but it looks like all of the units right now from Solar are going back into the main base. Lings alone are going to be enough to clean all of it up. Okay, a couple of Lurkers over here getting some sort of work done. Ghosts are obviously super important. Another worm in the back of the main. This time around, there are some units over here. I wouldn't mind seeing them go over to the back. Yep, he does decide to re-rally it right now. The other siege tank also using itself unsieged. And at the same time, while Terran is preoccupied inside of the main base, there's the banelings rolling into the planetary. I mean, they should roll into the planetary. There you go. A lot of SCVs, though, kind of derping around right here in the middle of that Terran bio army. Somehow, the way the majority of them seem to stay alive. Parasitic bomb on one of the Medivacs. Solar instantly remaxes. And obviously, that was an expensive set of units for him to lose. A couple of drones ended up going down on the other side of the map as well. Terran certainly lost way more there than the Zerg player. That being said, we are now in the stage of the game where Terran does have a couple of command centers to spare. 17 time in the back of the main is the charm, apparently. We're doing the exact same Nidus Worm once again. How many command centers are we on? Sorry, I was looking at... Yeah, we are at 6 orbital commands. So, yep. Nice little bit of mule income here. Even though ByuN's eco wasn't looking so hot, I think that that number is going to spike up quite well in just a little bit. Siege tanks dealing some friendly fire to each other as well. I think that trade actually was pretty decent for ByuN, all things considered. Not dropping the mules at the golden minerals. Yeah, but despite dealing quite a bit of damage on the other side of the map, right? I mean, only 8 workers in total, but at the very least he did kill a bunch of stuff. There are so many Zerg bases everywhere on the outskirts of the map. And Terran has a very hard time splitting themselves up in all of those different directions. Whereas if the bases are connected with creep, obviously Zerg can run around and reposition itself very rapidly. Another Nidus Worm. I don't even know where it went. I heard the little scream. Guess it doesn't really matter. It was mostly just a distraction. How many ghosts are we on? 12 ghosts at this point. Okay. That ghost transition is doing well, but you gotta be careful. The ghosts are obviously very susceptible to baneling hits. Yeah, very susceptible. They're decently susceptible to baneling hits. That's at the very least what the Zerg player is going for here. Ghosts, by the way, don't have that much more health than Marines do. Like, they have like twice as much. But the reason why they take like half a dozen banelings to the face is that they are not considered light units. So, yeah, they don't take that bonus damage from the Banes. Okay. It's very dangerous, by the way, right here, what ByuN is doing. I kind of dig it. But yeah, this is kind of the way that I was expecting this map to play out for the most part. I mean, ByuN did now secure another expo. Even though I haven't seen a lot of TVZs on this map, I mean, I kind of felt like this would be how most of the games probably go if they go the distance. Because Zerg has just taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8... Like, he's got like 9 bases at this point. Completely forgetting about one of the easiest ones, and that's the one right over here. In between the 3rd and the 4th. Anyways. He doesn't really need it, apparently. Once again, blinding clouds coming up right here on the siege tanks. Planetary Fortress ends up going down. Solar, though, is taking quite a bit of damage. Obviously, these traits are not very effective for him at all. Yeah, look at this. Losing more than 10,000 resources more than his opponent. So he's got to be careful here. But ByuN's army, while looking pretty scary, it's not terrifying here. Like, he really... I don't think this is the spot for a planetary, man. I really think you need a new planetary over here. Zerg, though, at this point has been spreading so much creep. Using the Nidus Worm right over there as well. He's been spreading so much creep that it's very hard for Terran to actually go anywhere. Completely swarming the opponent. Siege tank right there yanked towards the low ground as well. Ghosts did activate their cloaking ability, but there are overseers up in the air, and I do hear the sounds right now of dying ghosts. Those are the one unit that ByuN really cannot afford losing. God. Solar is just swarming all over him. Really beautiful game by the South Korean Zerg. He's got to be careful, though. Like, I keep saying it, right? But, like, ByuN's trading here has been impeccable, all things considered. He's barely lost anything. And while Solar is throwing a lot of stuff, and he's hoping that something will eventually stick, he's got to be careful that he doesn't, like, overthrow units away either, right? Because it's only... Yeah, it's only 2,000 resources right here in the bank, and he's not even maxed out. Yeah, look at the resources right now. So Solar is maxed out right now, but he's barely got a bank. Sure, he's mining a lot. And with 90 plus workers, you do need to trade very aggressively. My main concern right now for ByuN, though, is the fact that there's only a handful of mineral patches still remaining for him, right? So there's the ones right over here, and then a couple of golden minerals, I suppose, but that's really it. He never secured the right side, and he obviously got this one killed right over here. Where do you go from this position as a Terran player? Okay, here we go. Another wave of Zerg running straight forward right here. Okay. A lot of damage here being done once again by the ghosts. Snipes are going off left, right, and center. Good micro right there by ByuN. It's just that ByuN is kind of broke right now, right? I guess he can make, like, he can make marines. He's got 1,000 minerals worth, actually. Probably need to get some damage done. A little bit of miscontrol over there. Zerglings burrowed as well inside of the Natural Expo, just to go for round 2 here in a little bit. But apparently ByuN did realize that something wasn't quite right there. Why are we repairing the engine bay? I have no idea. Oh, we're just dropping a... Why are we repairing the engine bay? There's nothing in there that you actually need. Doesn't he get... Oh, no, he does have the armor upgrade and the high psych auto tracking too, so... Not exactly sure. I guess he really cares about that engineering bay. I feel like you need to maximize your mineral income, my man. I feel like that's more important than repairing a structure you really don't have a whole lot of use out of. Anyways. He's literally got all the upgrades, if I'm not mistaken. +3/+3, the 2 upgrades. Yeah, I think that's about it. Anyways, here we go. Solar. Ready to swarm the opponent, right? I think this is the Zerg fantasy that the StarCraft writers came up with so many years ago. Small groups of units going around the map everywhere. Constantly, wave after wave after wave of Zerg unit. And there it is. Solar, over the course of 20+ minutes, managed to dismantle his opponent. Anyways, I know there's been a lot of discussion about balance recently, right? Myself included as well. I've obviously made that video discussing balance and what I recommend to change about the game. But one thing that is very easy to forget about is how much maps actually make up for the balance. So, for example, in StarCraft 1, we didn't really see a StarCraft balance patch in a very long time, but the way that the game, was adjusted, I guess, at the professional level was by making the maps more Zerg favored, more Terran favored, more Protoss favored, and that way the balance could still be tweaked over time, despite the fact that Blizzard wasn't really involved. I think there's a lot of potential there as well. It's just something to remember. Anyways, well played right there to Solar. GG's.